my gavel? That's okay. Just had to knock on wood. Yeah. All right. Get it. Thank you. All right. The time is 6 o'clock, and I'm calling to order a regular meeting of the City Council of the City of Sunset Valley, Texas for Tuesday, August 15th, 2023. And before we get to public comments, I did want to just make sure that, there's been some discussion around Travis County and the state and Austin with wildfire awareness and some of the preparatory work that's going on there. We are going to be sending out some communications to the city and residents just to make sure that, they know what, obviously there's stage 2 restrictions that are coming into effect. We're in a drought. There's a lot of risk to wildfires right now. We want to make sure that residents are being extra cautious about their activities. And we're going to be closely monitoring and coordinating with Travis County in terms of any emergency response or any additional changes that we need to do. But that's just make sure that folks are aware of that and doing the best that they can to prevent any issues, as well as manage the stage 2 drought that'll be coming out as well. With that, I'm going to go ahead and open up for public comments. For those that wish to speak, please step up to the podium and state your name.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Melissa Gonzalez, 26 Reese. I wanted to thank the Mayor and Finance Committee for the hard work of bringing forward a budget, and staff for all the effort that they did getting our finances back in order in a better way. I know that was a huge undertaking. I do have a little bit of disappointment that the CIP continues to exist. I would like to know what the additional cost that we're paying, because I know when we first did it, it was like a $50,000-$60,000 extra expenditure, and I don't think it justifies it. I know that it's been an accounting challenge, if not a stronger word, that we haven't really had good balances, and I don't think it justifies its existence. And so, especially as we're trying to monitor our engineering costs, which were very high. And so I think it just it inflated our budget, which serves someone else's purpose, but I don't think it serves the City of Sunset Valley's purpose. So I would request that we get rid of the CIP and that we get clearer as to what it cost us, just so we know, if in case anybody decides they want to ever resurrect that again, that it was very expensive and really didn't serve a useful purpose as far as I can tell. If I am wrong about any of these points, I would hope someone would educate me, but that's my experience. Thank you so much for your time and all the effort you're about to put in.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak at this time? All right. Council, we do not have staff reports in the second meeting of the month, so we're going to move right on to agenda item number 3, which is council consideration of agenda items for approval on consent. Councilmember Rosengarten.
I move to approve on consent agenda items number 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8.
All right, so agenda number 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Is there anybody that wishes to pull one of those items for discussion? Mayor Pro Tem?
So 8 is the change of the task order?
It's the backflow that we already talked about the last council meeting.
I just had a quick question about it, so yeah.
Let's go ahead and pull that one. All right, any other ones that council wants to pull? All right, is there a second for the motion to approve on consent number 4, 5, 6, and 7?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. All right, we approved on consent approval of the minutes from the August 1st, 2023 regular meeting. The temporary special, item number 5, temporary special use permit for Do More Race Services Incorporated on behalf of Marathon Kids to hold the Daisy Dash 5K and 10K on October 22nd, 2023 along Brody Lane Highway, Highway 290 frontage, Ernest Robles Way, and Jones Road, with a finishing festival on Upper Cougar Creek. Item number 6, canceling the October 3rd, 2023 regular council meeting for the annual National Night Out event and the November 7th, 2023 regular meeting for the 2023 general election. And item number 7, the May and June 2023 financial statements as recommended by the Budget and Finance Committee. All right, with that, we're going to move on to agenda item number 8, presentation, discussion, and possible action on a change order to the fiscal year 23 Combined CIP Project, task order number 15, with Smith Contracting Company for replacement of the Oakdale waterline backflow preventer. And Mayor Pro Tem, let's go ahead and start with your question. And if we need to, we can have staff do a further discussion.
Sure. I'm totally in favor of it. I was just wondering when the work would be done.
So I'll let Dakota clarify that, but my understanding is that next week we'll be wrapping up the AISD portion over here on Jones Road, and they would be doing that directly after that, correct?
Yeah, they're gonna finish up everything that's on the current project list and then move to that, aside from the mill and overlay, because that's gonna be basically subcontracted out by them. So then they'll finish the sewer line, the AISD conversion, and then jump over to working on that. And we're about 14 to 21 days or so out based on ordering the new valve. So that'll put us right in line with being able to do that when they're finished with the project.
So, yeah, just to clarify that, so it'll be at least 2 weeks once council approves tonight, because they won't move ahead until council approves. It'll be 2 weeks after that, at least, to get 2 to 3 weeks to get the part in, and then they would move right after that on that.
So the mayor mentioned, I mean, it's not just moving into drought or stage 2 drought restrictions. I mean, it's been wildfire kind of season for the past. So these pumper trucks or whatever that they would use in case of an emergency like that, they just hook up to another hydrant somewhere and then use those to kind of like boost the water. Like how is that gonna, or it's not that they just bring the water, because that's probably not enough water, but it's.
So that's part of what we'll be doing as part of the education on what will be happening during that period of time, and also, educating the residents on Oakdale. So we would need this amount of time to provide all of that and to get, the word out there and to talk to them about that. But I know that we would be bagging hydrants. We would be working hand in hand with AFD to make sure during that. We're anticipating really a 2-day period that this project would be happening, and making sure everything was as secure as we could possibly make it, and everything was, that everybody kind of knew the plan of what was going on.
Okay. That's my only.
I had I'm in favor of this too, but I wanted to just check on, this is going to be paid out of the 10% contingency that we had. Did we also not draw out of that contingency for a change order on Sunset Valley, or do we still have the whole 190,000 available?
No, there are some change orders that have happened over the past few months. There have been some things some small things to hydrant. We had a conflict with the sewer line over on Highway 290, so there was a smaller change order there. So there has been some funds spent out of that contingency, but at this point in time, we do have the funds to still cover this.
Do we know what the final total is if we subtract the estimated 57,000? How much is left of that?
I believe when I was speaking with Gary last week, it was about $40,000 that would be left. So we would have been about, between this and the other changes that have kind of added up over time, we'd have at least $40,000 left.
And is that contingency fund available for when they do the mill and overlays on Lone Oak and Sunset Trail?
Yeah, that
Okay.
would be left for that in case we needed that.
Okay, thank you.
And if there was anything that caused us to go over, we'd be coming back to council to make any requests of that.
Right.
Because this part was not anticipated.
Right.
Councilmember Rosengard?
So that 190,000 should show the subtractions of the previous uses. Instead of showing the full 190, it should show what is left as of today.
Yes, so yeah, it should show, we're finalizing some of the numbers for that, but it should show about 60,000, I think it was, around there that we had already kind of spent.
Okay.
And that included a big chunk of that was the geotech. All the proctors and all of that they've been running and stuff, that was part of that contingency then. But that actually is about half of what we spent so far.
Mayor Pro Tem?
That I move we approve the change order to the fiscal year 23 Combined CIP Project construction contract with Smith Contracting Co. for replacement of the Oakdale waterline backflow preventer.
All right, there's a motion, there's a second. Second by Councilmember Young. Any further discussion on this item? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. All right. We're going to move on to agenda item number 9, presentation, discussion, and possible action on a request from Alba Terra Lane Company LLC regarding proposed Botanical Garden Cafe and Eatery project at 6405 Brody Lane and construction of a water line. So council, well actually let me ask City Administrator, do you want to do a presentation first or do you want to just go directly for executive session?
No, there's no need for a staff presentation. We can just.
So council, I would like to have a motion to go to executive session so we can discuss this with legal advice. Councilmember Young?
We move to executive session to discuss it.
Okay.
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 All right, we're going to go into executive session for agenda item number 9 at 6:11, and we'll reconvene once we're done with that discussion. We won't take any action while we're in executive session. What? So we,
Would it just be the first paragraph?
yes, it'd just be entering into, there'd be motion to approve a resolution.
Yeah. I can do it.
I move that we have staff and legal come back with a resolution directing the city to enter negotiations with,
There's a draft resolution, so you could just say, I motion to approve a resolution, or the, the resolution, yeah. That's part of that. Approve the resolution that, that is
Got it.
being currently displayed.
I move that we draft a resolution.
Resolution is
That we
drafted to
approve a
draft an agreement.
Approve the resolution.
Okay. Is there a second for that motion?
I'll second.
Okay. So that opens up for discussion. So what the motion is to approve a resolution that is being displayed right now to enter into negotiations with Alba Terra Land Company LLC. And so, council, any further questions, but I would like to open up for public feedback at this time, or members of the public to speak to this. So right now, the motion that's on the before council is to approve a resolution to have staff enter negotiations for bringing back what would be an assessment agreement with the owners of 6405 Brody Lane. And so with that, I'll open up for members of the public that wish to speak, or anybody else who's here on the developer side if they wish to as well. And just to be clear, this is not a approval of the agreement. This is authorizing staff to work with the owners of 6405 Brody Lane, or the potential owners of 6405 Brody Lane, to bring back an agreement for council to review and potentially approve, as well as have a public open session, discussion of that.
And it is a utility extension agreement and assessment.
Correct.
Not a cost participation agreement.
And do you have any questions about, because I'm happy to answer questions as best I can, so.
We understand that, I think it is on, is it not on? No, I think we understand that we would be meeting with the staff and enter into negotiations, and the result of that will not be necessarily a cost participation, but it may be in the form of an assessment. So we do understand that.
Okay. Did you have a question, Mayor Pro Tem? Okay. Are there any members of the public that wish to speak at this time before we take a vote on any motion? Right. So the motion is to approve the resolution to direct staff to enter into negotiations for a utility extension agreement, assessment agreement. Any further questions from council before we move to a vote? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Motion passes. And did you get the votes recorded? Okay. So this will be brought back at a future council meeting for the council to consider. All right, with that, we're going to move on to agenda item number 10. Presentation, discussion, and possible action on a proposal by GovBuilt for permitting and licensing software for the city. And we'll begin with a staff presentation on this item.
Mayor and Council, I'm Jerry Restoven, the Development Services Coordinator for the city. The city currently uses a program known as My Permit Now for our permitting and development software. This package, I believe, was bought around 2020, 2021. In my time here at the city, I have found it to be a very basic package. The software basically allows people to submit applications online, drop their files, their PDF files of their application into what's known as a Dropbox online. And then beyond that, it requires a lot of steps to be taken by the staff in order to move the project forward. So for example, I have to take the permit application, convert it into a project, drag all the files over manually myself, send an email to our third-party reviewers letting them know that we have an application submitted. They then respond to me with an email with a PDF, which I then have to let the applicants know what the comments were and what they need to change. The fees have to be calculated by myself using the program. The search query functions within the product are very, very limited. I can only look at projects that are 30 days within the past 30 days. Otherwise, I have to give it a range. I cannot go back to a search query. I have to start every search over if the file I look at is not the one I was hoping to find. So what I would like to do, what I'm proposing is that, with Matt's agreement, is that we switch to a program called GovBuilt. GovBuilt is a software that is meant for smaller cities such as ourselves, although they have their current clients are cities that are much larger than Sunset Valley. But this software would automate a lot of the functions that we have to do manually right now. So for example, when someone went to go submit an application, it would automatically be forwarded to third-party reviewers. It would inform me that an application has been submitted. It would automatically create a bill and send it to the applicant and let them know how much they need to pay. The search function would be much better. People could schedule inspections online instead of over the phone. It would have enhanced reporting techniques, so when we give you guys the administrative report on how many permits were submitted in the past month, that would all be done. Right now I have to do that by hand. That would all be automated. I just think it's a much more robust program. The program that we have right now was created by what's called a Council of Governments in South Central Louisiana. I guess they invented the product. They wrote the product themselves, and they decided to form a nonprofit corporation to market it. And we pay a minimal amount for it. It's about $250 per month. And I just feel that two things. I feel that one, sometimes you get what you pay for, and secondly, the product when it was set up in the middle of the pandemic. And I think that the success of these software packages, a lot of it really depends upon the beginning and the setting up of all the processes that you want the program to do for you. I feel that going with a for-profit corporation would be beneficial in that it's a license agreement. After we get the setup done, it's a license agreement, and they want to keep our business every year. And so they would be working with us with customer support, with adding additional processes, which we'll be able to do ourselves once they teach me how to do it. And I just think that we'd get a lot more bang for the buck, although it's more bucks. I think that we would really benefit from that in the sense that not only would it be beneficial to the citizens, beneficial to the applicants, beneficial to the staff, but it would also create a system, a much more structured system than what we have right now, which I feel has been largely dependent upon the personalities that were involved, the people that were involved and the way that they felt things were easier to be done for them or better to be done. This would kind of create a more formalized structure of our different development processes, and would automate all that. So I'm asking for your approval of this item.
Councilor Rosengard.
Do we have overlap with this new program with programs we have right now? For instance, some of the things that this new program will do for us It does, creates agendas, posts a newsletter, creates a searchable list for ordinance and resolutions. Don't we have that capability with Laserfish? So where I'm going with this is it possible that we could get a dumbed-down version of this without having to have features on this program that we aren't going to use because we already have it with Laserfish? Our newsletters, anybody on staff know? Our
So-
newsletters, what program, what software do we use to create our newsletters?
So
To-
we use a program called Canva. No, we would not use GovBuilt for newsletters. We would not use GovBuilt for agendas. GovBuilt would be used for permitting and licensing.
So it has features we won't be using, even though we're paying for it.
There are probably some features in there that we already have, as you said, another way of doing it. I think that, possibly in the future, who knows, we might want to, switch to this system. It might be easier, I don't know,
Yeah.
than what we have right now.
Now, one of the features that we've been missing is code enforcement, where before we had 311, where residents could call in or get into the website and type in lights burned out on Brody Lane or so on. So we haven't had that in a while, so that part is good. So make a note that we definitely want to use that if we don't have another program. There were a couple of things I wanted to ask. Does the software calculate the fees?
Yes.
Let's see. Is this program easy to search for cases?
Yes, it can only be an improvement over what we have now, yes.
Can we import the info from My Permit now and any other info from before My Permit? My Permit was maybe a 3-year program we've had. Before that, we had a different program.
I looked into that this afternoon. Actually, My Permit now was our first permitting software, but yes, this part of our contract, the proposal in front of you, includes importing all the data from My Permit now into the new system.
And then the next question is to Kyle. I see you. Is there a better way of funding this program versus using an IT repair and replacement fund for tracking?
Yeah, we can just fund it from the general fund and pull from reserves. We have excess revenues.
And put it into a line item that is going to be software acquisition?
Right.
Thank you. Matt?
Just to echo Jerry, so My Permit Now was the first foray into permitting software. Yes, it was better than what we had before, but unfortunately, it wasn't built out for a variety of reasons, and it's been very difficult. So even before Jerry started, Carolyn and I made multiple attempts to try to rectify some of the situations. It was just impossible to get any traction on trying to fix some of the deficiencies we had with the system. So, after Jerry came on board and we started working, he was just like, we wanted to find a solution to our software problem. And I think the best solution is to implement a new software, and one where our current development services coordinator can really build it from the ground up. And it'll be just not only good for implementing a new software that's easier for both customers and staff to use, but also, as Jerry said, just kind of check our development permit process. This will be a great time to check in with McComas, who does our both building review and inspections. We're going to obviously have to bring them on board because, they're going to have to be willing to utilize this system, just as staff does. And yeah, we did not have a permitting software before, so everything is in, either on the shared drive, or most of it is just within the physical property file. So we are not recommending bringing all of those old property files over, but again, the goal is, as a separate project, to have those digitized so that when we do need to refer to them, it's easy to find that information for property owners.
One thing too, if I could add, I'm sorry, is that we can incorporate this into the city's website. Technically, it would be different, you know what I mean? But you would not see that. If you went to the City of Sunset Valley's webpage, they will recreate the style of our webpage. You know, we have a certain style, I don't know how to describe it, but a look and feel to our website. You could go to the City of Sunset Valley's website, click on development, and have a thing that says, you know, I want to submit an application, or I want to see, you know, what's going on around my house. And it'll technically be going to the cloud where they keep their information. That'd be part of what they do for us. But it would look and feel just like the City of Sunset Valley's webpage with little round buttons at the bottom for different types of applications. That's their program. But right now, you know, people go to like a whole different thing. You know, they have to go into My Permit Now, and it doesn't look at all like us. So this, I think, would feel a lot more seamless to people. You know what I mean? Both citizens who are looking for information as well as applicants who are applying. That we would be basically directing them to the city, a page within the city webpage, rather than an entirely different web address with a different program and a different look.
Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. My Permit Now, you said it was like, we never really built it out the way, like, where did that fall off? Like, I know it was basically just you, I think, by the time they came in, I think.
Yeah, we didn't have a dedicated development person on staff,
Right.
so there was really no one on staff that had the bandwidth, I don't believe, to truly build it out. And so the processes were never built in, meaning all the things Jerry was speaking to earlier, where the workflows, right? That's when you build a software system, you're supposed to build the workflows.
Yeah.
Those were never built in, so everything is manual. So you have to, you know, we don't get email notifications when someone applies for a permit. You have to go in and, okay, has someone applied today? And then when you do process the application, rather than just it being able to go to the building inspector or the plan reviewer, you have to leave the program and email them saying, hey, go look at permit, you know, blank. It's
My
a very,
next question is,
yeah.
I'm going to ask the next question with the understanding of, apparently they were really terrible with support also. That seems like, is that correct? That, yeah, you just couldn't like get them to address anything.
There is no support.
That by itself is just like, kind of like the death knell for me. But like, if it was set up properly, would it have been able to do all this stuff for us?
What I could honestly say is I think that if more time was spent in setting it up, you know, I think, like I said, a variety of reasons, staffing, COVID, et cetera, it can probably do more than what we're using it for right now. But we'd have to go back and basically re-enter a new contract and try to, you know, boost its functionality. I think it would still not be as robust as this program.
Yeah, I'm on, or I just passed the, I don't know what the, you know, SLA was for My Permit Now. I'm seeing that they will review all low priority items within 4 hours and communicate within 24 hours. And I mean, you're probably talking to like a lot of salespeople, and they told you that, you know, they're going to be right there on the phone immediately. We should just keep an eye on that and see how well they keep up with that. When did My Permit Now just completely kind of ghost on problems?
It's been over a year.
But like,
I've been trying.
Once we got in using it,
yeah.
When did
I
you
mean,
see
well, it was implemented in 2021, and then it, you know, I think in late 2021 or early 2022 it launched, but it was not ready, and so it just, so you know, we had an implementation person, right?
yeah.
And you know, eventually they move on to something else, and so we had all these problems to fix that we would reach out to support, and
Yeah, I remember playing around with it, and it was
Yeah.
not very good. I was doing like the
So,
sign thing.
we did, as for our alternative, so we did verify with GovBuilt. They do integrate with Tyler Technologies, right? So they, you know, they're a fairly new company, but they do have at least one. The city they used as examples was Weatherford, Texas, who went out for an extensive RFP. That was included in your draft packet. It wasn't included in this packet. And GovBuilt won the proposal. Of course, it was probably a much more expensive venture and contract with them. They're a larger city. But Weatherford does use Tyler Technologies for their financial software, so the systems integrate. We did Tyler Technologies, who is doing our overhaul, our ERP system. They offer development software. Jerry actually was attending a planning conference, right? And reached out to them on subsequent occasions, and they just never, because we were like, oh, well, maybe we could use Tyler Technologies, since we're using them for a lot of other systems, and they just never got back to Jerry, so.
Yeah, I did go to the exhibit hall at the American Planning Association conference, and there's exhibitors who sell software packages like this. I come up and introduce myself and say, oh, I work for Sunset Valley. First question is, oh, how many people you got? 650-ish. They're like, yeah, you're 2 booths down. It'd be kind of like if I walked into a Lexus dealership. It's like, you're looking for Ford, it's down the street, Yeah. And so I got bumped a few times because, things like Amanda, which is what the city of Austin uses, they pay over $1 million a year in a licensing fee, because they have large needs, large number of users, large database, et cetera. And so a couple of the vendors, recommended, sorry, we're kind of a little bit out of your league in terms of price, but they suggested this company, 2 of them did actually, said, we're not right for you, but I think that these guys are more, in the style or the range that you're looking for. And so they actually reached out to me because those people, and we looked at, the thing I found with Tyler was, it was a similar problem that Tyler's just so big, and their main juice, if you will, is financial software.
Okay.
I felt like this is kind of an add-on, a little bit of an afterthought, and again, our size limits the people that are interested in our contract because of the dollar amounts.
So is it going to be just 28,000 a year?
No, it'd only be 11,000 a year.
Okay.
28 is the first year plus the setup.
Okay.
And so the setup is really important, and I can't emphasize that enough. That I want to make this so that if Matt and I aren't here any longer, the people who can pick this up later, it's all there for them. You know what I mean? In a software package, they're just using the software. And so the more expensive part is actually getting it up and going. Because there's a lot of staff time that they're flying down here and they're interacting with us. And so it will be a while, to be honest, before we get it up and going, because I'd rather spend the time trying to get it right, because I feel it's a lesson learned from my permit now. And so we're probably looking at, January, maybe a little later than that, before we actually get it up and going, but I think that that's okay.
But you said 11 a year afterwards?
Yes.
Okay, that's like because all I could find was that
5% escalation, so
5%.
it's 11,550 the year two.
Willing to go to 4% is what
we
they
talked
said.
about 1%.
Well, I think we go to
About
4%. Yeah.
Okay, that was all. Thank you.
Councilmember Rosengart?
So are you saying we have to continue to pay our annual fee for my permit now, and then in January, we start with the new GovBuilt?
Yes.
Will there be any cost savings when we cut my permit now off in January?
Yeah, we'd stop paying them the $250 a month.
So we don't have to pay them up front, and then there's no rebate or reimbursement of,
No,
Okay.
not that I'm aware of. I guess we'd have to double check the contractor. I wouldn't do that, though, until we were sure that we had all the data extracted from my permit now.
yes, thank you.
Additional questions from council? Councilmember Young?
I'm ready to make a motion unless anyone else. Okay. Make a motion that we approve a master services agreement with GovBuilt for permitting and licensing software in an amount not to exceed $28,500.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
Thank you very much.
Just because it wasn't specified in the motion, there was a comment from Councilmember Rosengart. Do you want us to come back with there is money remaining in the repair and replacement IT fund, but in order for it to be paid in the same fund and line item, would you like us to come back with a budget adjustment to just pay for this half of it in this current fiscal year with excess with general fund balance?
Putting it in a line item of software acquisition, yes.
Okay. So that can be a budget adjustment.
All right, council, we're moving on to our last item. This is a presentation item for discussion only. We'll have a couple more bites at this one. Oh, sorry. What'd you say? I thought we voted. Okay, all those Yeah, it was unanimous. So our last agenda item, which is presentation, we're not taking action tonight. This is, of course, the start of our budget discussions. We will have additional discussions on at least September 5th and at least September 19th, and we can always call additional workshop or work session meetings as needed. But this is the presentation and discussion of the mayor's budget for the fiscal year 2023-2024. I also want to thank staff and the Budget and Finance Committee for their hard work in putting this, the information that we used to put together the mayor's budget, especially a lot of hard work by Kyle and Matt over the last week or two. And also appreciate council's understanding, as we wanted to make sure we waited until Budget and Finance had a final meeting before filing the budget, even though that meant it didn't get into the draft agenda and we sent it out on Friday. With that, we do have a presentation to go over some highlights. So we'll start with that, and then we'll get into questions, as well as feedback from council as we move forward in the budget process. And we are obligated to adopt a budget before the end of the fiscal year, which is September 30th, just as a reminder. So with that, I'll hand it over to the city administrator for the presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council. This is our projected ending fund balances for fiscal year 23. You can see, again, the different categories. There's, reserves, there's committed, there's non-committed, and restricted. We did, as a part of building the fiscal year 24 budget, we did utilize some committed and restricted funds. For example, the 166,000 left over from the American Rescue Plan, the SLFRF funds, was the mayor and staff are proposing utilizing that for the as extra transfer to the utility infrastructure reserve. So you can see the projected ending fund balances are $28,355,000. Of course, we'll have more accurate numbers at when we officially wrap up the fiscal year. So the FY24 proposed budget has an overall revenue of $14.8 million and expenses of $13.4 million. And you can see the revenues less expenses of about $1.5 million. However, that is, in looking at those revenues and expenses, that is including transfers between the funds. So if you look at it as external revenue, we're projecting about $9.86 million in external revenue and $8.5 million in operating expenses and $1.7 million in CIP and project expenses. And there's about $3.25 million outgoing transfers, meaning transfers going to other municipal funds. Obviously, the sales tax revenue is, of course, our largest percentage of revenue, at about 73%. And then utility sales, about $1.2 million. We did increase that slightly because we did bring on, or we are bringing on AISD as City of Sunset Valley customers. And then the revenues just go down, but of course, sales tax revenue is the bulk. Expenses, and there's some comparison here with the FY23 budget, the actuals as of 6/30, and the proposed budget. So salaries, benefits, and other compensation. So that is only increasing 5.3% from the FY23 budget, and that is with 4 new FTEs, 2 new police officers, 2 new public works technicians, and the COLA, the tiered stipend COLA, and with a 5% merit pool. The fire and emergency services, that is just our contract with Austin Travis County. Contractual services went down 11.8% in the budget. Community programs went up 11.4%. Operating expenses, just dealing with inflation, things like repair and maintenance line items. We also increased some of the emergency fund line items, and we increased training. The prices of training have gone up. Big jump in CIP and project expenses. They've gone down a significant amount, but that's just due to the large projects that we've undertaken this fiscal year. Overall, if you're comparing non-CIP and just looking at the operating expenses, so the salaries category to other operating, those expenses have increased 4.5% from fiscal year 23. Here's just a detail of all the funds, and you can see the surplus and deficit. All funds at least break even, or they have a surplus. This is the budget, not the balance. This is the revenues and expenses, and of course this also includes transfers. So rate changes. So we had our utility rate work session back in July, and staff received direction from council. So with the mayor's budget, we proposed no rate changes or increases for water or wastewater rates, either in residential or commercial. We did receive direction. We will be bringing more information to you in the future regarding utility, water, and wastewater rates. In the mayor's proposed budget, there's an increase in monthly residential solid waste rate from $2.96 a month to $9.13 a month. The TDS rate is increasing from $29.22 to $30.39. This still leaves a $75,000 operational transfer or subsidy to the solid waste department from the general fund. So personnel, and a big change to the budget this year was personnel and operational expenses have been moved out of the solid waste department and just to stay in the public works department in the general fund budget. Another rate increase that I don't believe has been discussed with council, and it's in the budget, but it doesn't really have a line item, but the commercial and residential development fee schedules, that's adopted when you adopt the budget, and McComas Inspections, who does both of our commercial and residential plan review and also all inspections except for plumbing, has raised their rates effective September 1st, but we won't actually adopt it until the budget. So the price of an inspection for either commercial or residential is going from $60 to $100, and that is just to pass along costs from McComas. Already touched on this, but personnel items, there's the 2 new police officer positions. It brings the total number of funded officers to 10. The 2 new maintenance technicians, which brings the total number of funded techs to 6. The stipend that was given in fiscal year 2023 to help deal with inflation has been built into the salaries as a COLA. That is a tiered stipend. We got some good news from Humana. Originally, we thought we were going to have to go into the open market to find a new plan. Humana said they were getting out of the type of plan that we had. However, they decided to stay, and then to try to keep customers, I guess Higginbotham was able to negotiate. They actually are giving us a 10% decrease, which is great. Here's a medical insurance cost going down. However, we decided to leave it flat in the budget because more than likely the next year we're looking at having to go out and find a new plan. So there's going to be some sticker shock there. So we just left it flat in the budget, but we'll be keeping an eye on that and working with Higginbotham when we do eventually have to find a new medical insurance provider. The 5% merit and reclassification pool. So employees, department heads and supervisors are wrapping up actually today the employee evaluations for the fiscal year. And so the department heads and I will be meeting next week and finalizing those recommendations. So at the budget that is presented to you on September 5th, we'll have those final proposed salary numbers based on the department heads and myself. Along with any other items that you want discussed tonight, but that'll be a major bring back, as we'll have the final proposed salary numbers so that you all will know what that is before you adopt the budget. And then also the Public Works employee fund allocations, they were updated based on review during the budget process. That is included, it's the very last appendix in the budget book, and you can see the old public works employee split amongst the different funds versus the new. And again, I think a major change is just taking the solid waste out, and that was really the big change, and just kind of a better allocation. The public works director utilized our new software, the PubWorks, to see where the employees were spending their time. So, other items in the budget, just to touch on, we were just discussing software. So there was a $65,000 increase in the software acquisition and maintenance fees. These software costs will be bloated in fiscal year 24 because we are running parallel systems. So, right, even though we're bringing Tyler on board, we're still having to use MIP because we're not going to obviously shut MIP down until Tyler is up and running. So just the same with GovBuilt, right? We're not going to stop using my permit now until GovBuilt is fully launched and ready to go. So there are some increases, but those will fortunately go down because we won't be running the parallel systems hopefully in fiscal year 25. There was a $50,000 in the mayor's budget. There was a $50,000 placeholder funding for solar panel installation at PD and PW. The RFB responses are due soon. We did have one. There was a mandatory walkthrough. Yeah, mandatory walkthrough. So we had one company, one contractor show up today. So the requests for bid responses will return at a future meeting where we can discuss that further. And then we also put a placeholder, the mayor and staff put a $40,000 placeholder for storage yard repairs and upgrades as discussed by council. We've had at least 2 meetings discussing the storage yard issues. So these repairs and upgrades would be mostly security related. So putting better fencing and installing the cameras as we discussed. Committee requests, so there was an increase in CED community events and programs. There's one-time events happening in 2024, including the April 2024 solar eclipse, and then the September 2024 will be the city's 70th anniversary celebration. So Art Fest, this was discussed when we did our initial budget presentation, but Budget and Finance did recommend it. The mayor put it into his budget. So Art Fest, they are now, the Arts Commission did not apply for a hot fund grant like they have done in years past. It was just built into the budget, still utilizing hot funds. Also, we will be making a transfer rather than expensing items in the hot fund. It'll just be one transfer from the hot fund to the general fund, and then the expenses and revenues will be kept in the general fund. There's a line item, just like there was in this current fiscal year, of $10,000 for SFC farmers market support. That is not hot fund, that is general fund, and that is specifically for, that pays for half a year of TDS toilet services for the market. This is a request, I think the official request was from P&E, but CED has been discussing it, and the Arts Commission is also has some ideas as well. So MEND came up with a task order. It's for $40,000, and it's for City Hall interactive community gathering space planning. And there were 2 hot fund grant applicants that the Budget and Finance Committee recommended approval for. SFC, $1,000 less than their money they asked for last year, and Daisy Dash for the same amount. And then one difference in the Arts Commission committee funds is, rather than having it all be in general funds, I believe it was a $29,000 request. It's split between the general fund and the hot fund, and $15,000 specifically for public art. So that is art displayed in public. We can utilize hot funds for that as opposed to general fund. Do you have a question, Karen?
And where's the other part of it? So,
oh, it's just not shown, but yeah,
okay.
Yeah, they still have the 14,000 something in the general government.
In the general fund, yeah.
Yes.
Just moved out the 15
Yes.
that was for public art into hot. Got it.
So 2024, FY 2024 CIP projects. So the Reimagine Brody, this is just the planning phase, initial planning phase of this project. It is funded out of the street fund, 112,000. The Savannah Trail at Upper Cooker Creek, that is 740,000. About 130 is eligible for venue fund or green tax fund, and the rest, the 610, is out of the general fund. Ernest Robles Way and Home Depot Boulevard improvements is for the bridge and sidewalk improvements and the streets. We are doing like we did this year and not putting a number in the budget and going to bid the project, and then once we receive the bids, then we can tie a number to that project, and that also comes out of the street fund, one of our healthiest funds. Country White Lane waterline, 430,000 out of the utility fund, and then what was just approved after some public input and council discussion was going ahead and adding that turnaround as a part of the project, and that portion comes out of the street fund. And then City Hall gathering space already just discussed, and then another planning project proposed is the 6107 Brody Trail and or parking planning. Those are both general fund. Items for consideration not included, so the water conservation rebate program expansion. There's already been work done on this. P&E has some recommendations. It needs an ordinance to amend our conservation ordinance. And so there are $1 million still in committed funds that we could go ahead and move those into the budget if we're ready to move forward and make those changes to the ordinance and codify some of the rebate program expansion. And then there could be other council items or items that the public raises in these budget work sessions that we have until September 19th that we could also add. Projected ending fund balances. So, you know, where we're projecting to end the fiscal year versus where we're this fiscal year versus the end of next fiscal year after the and it's about 2% down, but that is funding projects. And you can see there's a, you know, the increase or decrease in the balance. The utility fund breaks even except for that 430,000, which is a waterline project. The crime control, this transfers the funds out so that it has a balance of 75,000, which was council direction. The repair and replacement fund, we are drawing down to replace vehicles and equipment that are scheduled for replacement. Council could, and so that leaves the balance of the repair and replacement fund at 650,000. You know, there's going to be a surplus this year. We're on track to have a surplus, so council could allocate some funds or even some leftover funds in other areas to replenish the repair and replacement fund. Any questions?
Thank you, and I appreciate again the work that was done there. And so, just as a note, the Budget and Finance Committee did look at this on their last meeting, which was last Thursday, and their recommendations are included here with the two exceptions that were noted for. I included placeholder funding for solar panels, and we do not have pricing on that yet, but for me it's a priority project that I want council to evaluate. And also the storage yard, and I included that because even though we don't have detailed cost estimates, having a budget line item there is going to be helpful for staff when we need to make smaller upgrades, even if we're not purchasing like a contract, you know, to do everything. We're going to be making upgrades over time, and having a budget line item there is something that I think is useful for us. And but Budget and Finance did not recommend either of those two just based on not having detailed backup for them, and they were kind of introduced late in that process. But we've also discussed certainly the storage yard at council and given direction to staff to proceed with the upgrades and bringing back costs for those. So with that, it's, at this point, there's a big packet of information, for you. I think, as I stated this last year, we could go ahead and just, skip this whole process and pass it, but I think we want to go forward with, obviously, the public input process. There's, council, we are estimating that we're going to have additional revenues, surplus beyond what we budgeted for in our current budget, which is always a nice thing to hear. But of course, those could be applied to shoring up reserves, or they could be applied to other projects that council deems a priority as part of our next fiscal year. There are also unanticipated costs that we're likely to have, like the ROW project, being one of those things that will require a budget amendment. So, we might want to be pre-planning for some of that as well. So council, open up for questions. Councilor Rosengard and then Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay, first off, I'd love to get a copy of your presentation. So if you could send that to all of council and the mayor.
Will do.
And then secondly, I already mentioned this to Kyle previously, the numbers don't duplicate again and again. There are different numbers each time, especially for expenses. So if you go to the cover page of agenda item number 11, you'll see that expenses are recorded as $13,382,141 with transfers. And then you go to another page and it's a different number, and you go to another page and it's a different number. For instance, if you go to the summary page, it'll show 13 million, I'm sorry, I said 1,000, didn't I? 13,411,781, which is 28,000.
Is this the agenda cover page or the budget
The cover
book?
page, it says, it has all those lines, and it says, let me go and find it. It's in the backup.
This page?
Yes.
Yeah,
that's
so
it.
I sent an email today, so we did find some errors, and one of them was in the expenditures section. I think there was like a transposed number, so we did repost the budget book with a corrected budget total page, which has, all of these, it's the budget total, all funds, that there was a correction made to that spreadsheet in the budget book, and then there was a correction made to this page as well, and then some corresponding cover pages throughout the budget book. But yeah, so just make sure, so I sent the document today, but also it's posted online, so budget book.
There's
hopefully
another
has made
number
corrections.
where you see 10,161,740, and on another page you see 10,132,000, which is $29,640 different.
Yes, that was the corrections that were made, that Kyle and I made yesterday.
Okay. You should have told me yesterday. Then go to page it's the letter, page 6 of 72, which is the budget. Also shows a different number.
What, 13,382,141?
That's the page. Page 6 of 72, up above the graph below, the bar graph below, you see a 13,082,141.
Yep.
And then on another page, you see another number.
Which one?
Yeah, and then page 7. And page 7, it says anticipation of increased expenses, so that's a note for me. And then page 19, again, another number. I shouldn't say another number, it's like,
Yeah,
which number is the number that should carry forward? And Kyle was telling me earlier that it's 13,412,143 should be the number. So we need to go through this, and wherever that number is supposed to be, correct all the numbers.
We'll do that.
Okay. And let me see if there was something else. That's what I had. Thanks.
Mayor Pro Tem?
In the PowerPoint there, can you go to, it's like on the third page or something? I just started on the first page and kind of click through. Yeah. Okay, yeah, I think it might have been this one. No. This one? There was one that showed like what the budget for fiscal year 23 was, and then like what the actual was. It was up by like
Expenses, here we go.
$600,000. No, sorry, no, this was, and it's just through June
6/30, yeah, so
Sorry, that's
this
what it
is 3/4 of that.
So that will go, that's just, the two numbers at the bottom of those two columns where it's like, the budget was 10.9 million.
Yeah, the budget is, expenses in FY23 were 10.9 million budgeted. Actuals as of 6/30, 6.8 million actual expenses as of the end of the third quarter. And then our proposed FY24 budget expenses, 10.1 million. Oops, sorry. So the increase and decrease is comparing the budget, not the actuals.
Is that just confusing to me that it's like, it doesn't take into account like what it's gonna, the actual is gonna end up at?
Yeah, I think it's because we do our best to project, but this is a snapshot of what the closing of the third quarter was. And, you know, we may have additional expenses because of timing of bills or, you know, expenses that are, you know, occur that get us, obviously it'll get us closer to that budget amount, but we're not going to be exactly that budgeted amount. We never are the exact budget amount every year.
Okay, that's it, thank you.
Councilmember Young.
Just a couple of comments to do with utilities. One, if you go to pages 43 and 45 and look at the costs for wholesale water purchases and wholesale wastewater purchases.
Of the budget, sorry.
Yeah.
Yep.
Someone can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I seem to remember that during COVID, we bumped up the budgeted amounts for water and wastewater under the theory that people would use more during COVID. And I brought this up when I was on budget and finance, but I think it looks to me, and if you look at the numbers for the last couple of years, we're budgeting more than we need to for both water and wastewater, and that may be different this year. I mean, we don't have July, August, and September, and you know, given the conditions we're under right now, we may end up using a lot of water. But I think for next year, we should take a careful look at that and make sure that we're not over budgeting for this.
I do think that it was over budgeted last year. What we did was knowing that we were, yes, we're in a drought now, right?
Right.
So, you know, people are having to water, and knowing that we're taking on the city of Austin, or sorry, not the city of Austin, excuse me, AISD, right? So that's going to be, you know, an increase. We just tried to look at the actuals, you know, going back a few years. We did look at the fiscal year 21, which was, as you can see, the actuals, you know, it was quite a bit higher than other years. People were home, right, in fiscal year 21. But yeah, I do think that, I mean, that's why the budget did decrease from the FY23 budget.
Just
Yeah,
something.
it's just, yeah, you're right. It's something to keep an eye on to make sure that we aren't, you know, bloating the budget, but you always want to budget enough. You know.
Yeah, the other comment I had was on the utility fund balance, which is about 4.9 million. We're projecting it to be 4.9 million at the beginning of this next fiscal year. At the end of it, we're projecting it to be about 4.5 million, and the difference is a transfer of 430,000 out, which basically I assume is for countrywide. And I'm wondering, do we want, given that this is potentially the least healthy of our funds, do we want to transfer an extra money to keep it at the same level that we expected to at the beginning of the year? Just something to think about. And one thing we consider is we probably, the difference in our projected revenues and actual revenues may be just about that amount of money. So we may want to consider putting that back into the utility fund.
So in the past, I know that that is what has happened, I believe, at one point in time. So any money that is left over in the utility fund, that from cost savings, whatever happens in that, goes back and stays in the utility fund and doesn't get transferred over to the general fund.
Good. That's all I had.
Great, thank you. Councilor Reeds?
So, hot funds. Is there a way that we can utilize hot funds for things like the Savannah Trail, like signage and things like that? Have we really explored all the ways we can use hot funds? That's a healthy fund there that's not touched as much.
Right. I have several, I have a list of questions regarding the hot fund, so I need to devote some more time in researching it in ways to utilize it. But I mean, there's guidance from things like TML, has prepared, this is what you can use hot funds for, and there's a two-part test, right? And so, I know I've heard in the past, oh, can we make City Hall a visitor center? And then,
Right,
but
right.
you can't just dedicate a little desk or a little kiosk and call that a visitor center. It has to be a dedicated visitor center, right? So there are limitations, but it gets difficult with things like trails and things like that because, again, it's about promoting the tourism industry, and it is supposed to be tied to, the hotel industry was really big about arguing heads and beds, and that's not legal, right? That's the hotel industry wants you to say heads and beds, right? But it is when you're reading, the tests, it does have to be tied into promotion, and do trails really cover that? I don't know. I'd have to get some legal opinions on that.
Creating a park, which is essentially what the Savannah Trail will end up being, could be part of that as attraction. The reimagined Brody long-term, not the planning obviously, but long-term with lighting, with landscaping, those types of things. To me, it's worthwhile exploring that and to see if we can utilize that as much as we can.
Thanks. Councilor Medicus?
So I believe MEND put a line item in the budget for the Upper Cougar Creek for a certain amount of money was in that proposal to come out of Hot Fund. And I don't know if it was just for the art.
I think it's for the art.
For the art, but
yeah.
you can use Hot Fund for wayfinding and signage to direct people. You could even have, to the park. Like you could put a sign at the hotel.
It says signage directing the public to sites and attractions that are visited frequently by hotel guests in the city.
Yep.
So
That's the trail.
Yeah. Sure.
You can say it that way to Sunset Valley Shopping.
Right.
And their sign underneath it says trails.
Well, to all the trails.
I think it's a good idea. I think the hot funds being a healthy fund,
Yeah.
as long as it's meeting the test. I mean, and I talked about, can we use hot funds for the services we provide for hot fund recipients, like putting our police force out there for the race events, for example. We pay for that out of overtime, salaries, et cetera. That's, the open question is, can we, because it's partner event, we're providing that, is that something we could justify as part of hot funds? But the trails and signage, those things are great ideas.
That is included.
It's pretty specific that it can be used, and of course this was written, I'm sure, for some sporting events in a county under 1 million, and then enhancing or upgrading existing sports facilities or sports fields, only in certain cities. parks, that's harder if we're actually using it to build the parks, but I think we can, if we're utilizing it for the wayfinding signage,
To
I
direct
think that's
people
where we
to the
can
park.
utilize,
Yeah.
utilize the hot funds.
That would work.
Other observations, questions from council before opening up for members of the public? Invite members of the public. Oh, sorry.
I
Councilor
was
Reese.
just going to say, this is a great budget book here. I mean, it's very understandable. I think it just gets better and better every year. So thank you to all of y'all's work and the Budget and Finance Committee. So it was excellent.
Yeah, I have to commend staff. I think the process this year, improved on what we started last year, but, it's made a lot easier with, the tools we have for collaboration, especially using the, Microsoft Teams and OneDrive and things like that. We were able to basically, cohabitate the same space for making edits and updates. So it worked really well, and hopefully we can carry that forward to, all the projects we do as a city. So. All right, open up for members of the public.
Melissa Gonzalez, 26 Reese. Actually, Councilmember Medicus and Councilmember Reitz made a lot of my points already, so I'll just reiterate that I was going to say what they said. And the only thing that they didn't say that I was planning on saying was swag. Most other cities don't give their money away. When we had a marketing committee that was actually all marketing business people, we did do an analysis, and what we found was that a lot of cities didn't give their money away to anybody else. They just kept it for their own individual tourism, and creating swag was a significant amount of that. And so things for events and things that Danielle does like that are things that were what a lot of cities were doing. They were creating swag that had Sunset Valley branding on it, or their city's branding on it. And I haven't seen us do that. And so it did occur to me to add that in addition to the wayfinding signs that we were talking about in the Reimagine Brody and the art. But we were already sort of discussing those, so I'm glad y'all brought them up. But I didn't hear anybody else talk about swag, and I think we should kick up our swag. That every time there's an event, we should have a good stash of it, and it's ready to go. And I think we do that really well here, and I hope we keep it on. Thank you. And really, everybody's doing a great job on this budget. It's great.
We have a 10K line item in the hot funds this year for, I think I titled it promotional items, but yeah, for swag.
Excellent.
So
Speaking of, where's that shirt from, Melissa?
they got wiped out at the event.
You didn't
Speaking
you
of
didn't come to
swag,
the City Hall grand opening.
I was busy, sorry.
They had hats too. And one thing I'm really excited about is that we do have funds for these, the events, and the committees are really moving that forward, at the committee level, and excited that we can celebrate, public art. We can have the events like the anniversary that'll be coming up, and the solar eclipse, and so I'm excited that that's a big part of the budget too, and what we can gives the community like the grand opening event for City Hall, which was very nice, and staff did a great job with that, and thank you for the swag, that was part of that. Hopefully that it continues as well. So the schedule right now is that we will be having our budget work session on the 5th, and that'll also be the time for the public to see the budget. If you do have other items between now and that meeting, please send them to staff, to myself, so that we can make sure that that's prepared in time. We will go ahead and make corrections through the budget and repost it and let council know when it gets reposted, so that all the numbers align, and continue to make sure that we take any feedback for that. And then we'll have our adoption on the 19th at least scheduled, but we can always schedule additional workshops as needed to account for council request or additional input. Matt.
And we'll be focused on messaging, so the September newsletter that'll come out whatever the first Friday in September is, will be, September 1st. So it'll be focused on the budget, and that's where we will, let residents know, and there'll probably be a separate notification about the trash rate. That's the major at least in the mayor's proposed budget, that's going to be the major impact to them is the TDS rate, or the rate the city's collecting. But we're also going to highlight, this is how much, this is how much the contract costs, per month, and this is what your new rate will be. So we're just trying to slowly.
And honestly, there is some additional justification for that. We have a financial policy to pass along contractual increases and obviously part of that is contractual increases. We never passed along the contractual increases that we incurred as a result of moving to every week recycling. And so that was never passed along. So this is catching us up to part of that. It doesn't actually fully account for that even, but that was about a $20,000 increase in our service cost. And so this is in line with that. And I think we want to message that, those cost increases are something that as a financial policy, we want to make sure that we're including in rate increases. Well, council, any?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second for that? Second. All right, all those in favor of adjourning? All right, we are adjourned at 8:42 p.m. All right, thank you, council, and looking forward to further discussion on the budget. Oh, you did?